ourselves into the realms of self-discovery and transformation. I'm Christy, and alongside me today is Jen. We are your hosts, and today we have an incredible guest.
We are honoured to have Jen Hamilton with us, a beacon of light in the world of healing and growth. Through her expertise in hypnotherapy, past life regression, conscious life coaching, NLP, and energy healing, Jen offers an all-round approach to help you break free and embrace a life of abundance, purpose, and joy.
Welcome, Jen.
Thank you so much, ladies. What an intro. I love that.
So do we, Jen. I would really love if you could share with us today, any sort of story. Did you have a spiritual awakening? How did you end up doing what you do today? Was there kind of a lead-in, or did you just land in this space?
Oh gosh, I've had multiple spiritual awakenings, and I think once you start to awaken up, you don't stop. It just you just get wider and wider within your third eye until you're like, make it fucking stop, please. I can't take this anymore. And that's what we call the dark night of the soul.
Right.
And so my journey, look, I started working with meditation, psychic readers, oracle cards, learning how to do psychometry many, many years ago. It's probably about 16, 17 years ago. And it fascinated me. However, that was in my early 20s. I was also, coming into my early 20s, I was looking to party as well. And so I had this frame of mind that spiritual Jen couldn't be the same as party Jen. Do I want to be spiritual Jen, or do I want to be party girl? And party girl took the reins for a little bit. And so, as we all do in our 20s, we experiment with all of the fun things. And occasionally I would sneak to the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival. And I'm like, oh, I'm home. My people. Or I would learn things, or I would learn, more about an energetic healing modality. And that would sort of take my capacity for a while. But I didn't realize I could actually integrate all parts of myself until 2017, really, which is when I went through a separation. So after party girl Jen settled down a bit, I had a few babies, couple of babies, got engaged, and I really started to feel as though that there was more that I desired from life, and I didn't know what that looked like at the time. And so I started going to these events called Spirit Circles with my beautiful friend, Cameron Bayless. And before I could see myself, he could see me. He's like, you will do incredible things. And I was like, stop it. Me. And so I worked really closely with him, going to these spirit circles, really starting to work on, my gifts and what that looks like for me. And through that, I started to realize just how much I desired to live a life that wasn't in alignment with the same values that my partner at the time had. So I really was like, I want to get into this personal development space. I want to, grow and evolve. Are you on board? And he was kind of like, why the fuck would I do that? And so I was like, okay, all right. Well, I need to do this. I love you, but I love me more. And I have to go out and, soul search and find who I am. And so we separated quite amicably compared to some people. The kids were only very young at the time. My family actually took it really, really hard. And they basically took his side. How could you do this to your family? You've made your bed, you lay in it. And I'm like, but I'm not happy. I'm searching for something and I'm not being fulfilled in my relationship. So what happened was at the start of 2018, because what happens is when we go through something really traumatic like a breakup, we actually, our mind wants to regress to the time that we were happy prior to that event happening. So what happened? Party girl Jen came back again every second weekend when I didn't have the kids. And I gave myself permission to just explore life and go off the rails a little bit, as long as I caught myself before I completely fell off. That was my contract that I made with myself. And I remember walking home one night at 4 a.m., shoes in my hand, staring at the moon saying, I thought you had my back. what the fuck is this? What is life? What is going on? I'm like, this is not how I imagined my life. What the fuck am I doing? You know? And so that was then really the catalyst to really just check in with myself going, am I actually nourishing myself? Am I, you know, living a life of purpose? And I wasn't. In fact, I was living a double life because I had like an Instagram account for like Mum Jen that had the kids on the weekends and did the baking and stuff. And I remember the first time I went to a club after my separation, this guy comes up and he's like, oh, what's your Instagram? I'll slide into your DMs. And I'm like, slide into my what now? Like, I didn't even know the lingo. And I was like, fuck, I don't want people knowing that I'm like a mom and that, you know, so I had to start a new Instagram account for my double life. So it was like Party Gen Instagram. And it was just, I'm like, I can't do this. And I was so ashamed of having so much fun because I was happy that I didn't want my friends and family to see that. So I hid it on social media until one day I was like, no, this is just who I am. And this came through, you know, I'd started studying hypnotherapy and psychotherapy. And all the way that came about is because I was listening to a podcast one day and they were interviewing a hypnotherapist. And I was like, oh, that's it. I love mindset stuff. I love the power of the mind. I'm so fascinated by this. And I can help so many people because compared to, for example, like a psychology degree of 4 years, I can actually be doing similar sort of work, but I can help people quicker than that and probably help myself in the same time. So I started studying hypnotherapy. I would fly in and out of Sydney for 4 months on weekends to do all of my prac. And then you do the rest of it online. And then through that, they also said, hey, look, we recommend you studying NLP as well, because the language is very similar in hypnotherapy. So I was like, all right, I'll do that. And the person I was working for at the time, she was actually launching an NLP coaches program. So it just the alignment, like the synchronicities of everything just falling into place. So I ended up doing the program with her, and there was another guy that was facilitating with her. So they'd met through doing their training together. And I got to a point in my life where I was just numb. I refused to feel my feelings because if I felt my feelings, I had to deal with my own shit. And what happened is through hypnotherapy training, I was able to bypass that because it was quite clinical. Yes, we had to do stuff on ourselves, but we weren't, like, we were in a big group and you could just bring forward any content basically that you had to work through. However, with NLP, it was in such a small group, and little did I know we actually had to do the work on ourselves first. And so the male facilitator triggered the fuck out of me one day, like triggered me to the point where I was like, this is bullshit. You can't say this kind of stuff. All he said to me, all he said to me was that your whole life is a lie and no one is coming to save you. And so I ended up packing my shit and walked out of the course and basically told them to get fucked. Went home, wrote letters to my family, friends, and kids. I'm like, fuck this shit. I'm out of here. If my whole life's a lie, then what's the fucking point? Anyway, my boss at the time and one of the other guys who was in the course ended up coming to my house a few hours later, knocked on the door, and I just broke down. I lost it. You know how like you were crying so much that then eventually no sound comes out because you're just depleted. You're just depleted of sound and energy. And all I did was just wailed on the floor and let everything out. And there comes a point when you have a breakdown where the breakthrough comes and you get up and you're like, oh, I'm done. I'm finished. Oh, I'm actually okay now. And so they just held space to me for a couple hours to just move through this almighty breakdown, and then got up. And I was like, okay, so I can redesign my life now in any way that I want to what do I want to keep? What do I want to keep moving forward towards? And what is it that I want to leave behind in the past? And so I made the decision then and there to be like, okay, well, if, say, for example, I use the analogy of the like a mirror being shattered. Okay. And so what happens is this wrecking ball comes in and it completely shatters, and there's all these pieces all over the ground. And what you can do is you can just pick up the pieces that you want to keep and make a beautiful mosaic with it. You can make art with it. And so that's what I did. And it was through working in this particular space, through being able to connect with people in the personal development industry, is what led me to then working with plant medicine. And when I started working with plant medicine, for anyone that's, listening or watching that understands, working with these beautiful medicines that take you on a journey that, open your pineal gland, open your third eye, you're able to see and feel and know things on a completely different level. That's where I started to find myself again. That's where I started to realize that I had to go through all of these dark nights of the soul, the shadow, but every time I did, there was actually magic on the other side of it. And I'd felt like my whole life had been preparing me for the journeys that I went on with plant medicine. Because if I can, walk to hell and back over a long period of time, I can do it in a ceremony for 8 to 12 hours. And then go, like, one of the biggest things about plant medicine is the integration experience anyway. In fact, I offer integration sessions following a past life regression with my clients because of how important it is to have support afterwards, because you're going to bring back a whole bag full of magic. And you want to be able to go, well, hang on, how does this fit into my life now? What am I making the world mean? What am I giving meaning to in just sort of the mundane things? How am I viewing this world that's happening around me? And is it all just a dream?
I think you sort of just touched on something there that's like, that is, I think, essential. And I think a lot of people bypass this, which is the integration. Like, we can do all the work, right? We can move all the pieces, but what happens after we've gone through that session, or, gone through that plant medicine journey, or, done the courses and, broken everything down into those pieces? How do we pick that all up and like really integrate that back into our life in a way that we can move forward in a healthy way with the tools that we've just learned, right?
Yeah. And look, this is the biggest thing. I'm like an integration junkie, because that's going to be like the magic of the medicine, is how you can bring that forward. And it takes time. You cannot rush integration, and you can't just rush back into a ceremony because you've healed ancestral lines, or you've, connected to past loved ones, or you've, had a prediction about the future or something like that. You have to go, okay, well, how does this now fit into my everyday life? What can I do with it? How can I support other people in this journey, which is one of my highest values, is being able to take what, I receive through doing these medicine journeys and saying, well, if I can do this, how do I support others in this journey as well? And that's one of the biggest things to me in this line of work that I get to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think, to like, do you find also, like, we can go on this journey, we can get all these tools and we can do all the things. Do you find people get stuck in the healing process? Like, get addicted to the healing?
I do. And I've seen this a lot, because it's so interesting, isn't it? Because the term spirituality, when we throw that around, like if anyone's watching the video, you can see, like, you would think I was a spiritual person because I've got the salt lamp and I've got the oracle cards and the tarot. I've got one of my spirit guides and my animal guides and all of the bits and pieces. And all spirituality is just having an awareness of self and awareness of things around you. And so what I get really passionate about, when we talk about spirituality, because people often think as well, oh, the spiritual journey is about, I've got to reconnect with my father, or I've got to reconnect with my mother, or like, we give spirituality meaning that's actually got a ceiling, when ultimately
Yeah.
spirituality is anything you decide it to be. And
Mhm.
yes, healing is a massive component of it. And you also get to a point where you've finished wailing on the floor, you've finished getting snot everywhere, tears everywhere, there's no sound coming out. And then you realize that has been a healing. You don't have to go back into
Yeah.
it.
Right.
And this is what I love about hypnotherapy and the coaching work that I do, is because yes, we can go back and unpack trauma. Yes, we can go back and do inner child work. It is so necessary. And we draw a line in the sand and we say, who am I now? Where do I want to go? And what are the sustainable steps to get there? Because if we
Yes.
keep looking back and trying to heal the past, we're actually not keeping our eyes forward to move in that
Mhm.
direction.
Mm.
Yeah. So your journey is truly inspiring, Jen. Could you tell us a bit about a pivotal moment or experience that led you to combine these modalities into your approach for healing and growth?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I was doing a mushroom ceremony one night, psilocybin ceremony, and I was at home on my own doing it. I didn't have a trip sitter with me. I was comfortable doing it on my own. And I remember during this, I had this vision. Not only like do you have a vision, but your whole existence goes with it, right? So it's not just a thought process, like you are in it. And I remember just experiencing this dark shadow around me and this darkness that all I wanted to do was just look down. I'm like, ah, la, 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 this can't be happening. Oh my God, there's an entity here. Oh my God, what have I let in? I've been so safe in ceremony. Help, 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 right? And then what I did is I was like, do you know what? I actually have to face off with whatever this is. And so then the vision took me into going to this this battle, like this medieval battle space where there was this grandstand and people sort of cheering us on. And I was like in the arena and I walked in and this entity was walking towards me and I could feel the darkness and I had my head down and I went to draw my sword to slay this thing. And I looked up and I looked it directly into its eyes and I saw my own eyes staring straight back at me.
Yeah.
And I left the arena with an ally, which was my shadow, which was my darkness, which was the part of me that I refused to look at because I thought it was going to hurt me. And so having that experience going, holy fuck, coming out of the journey going, what even was that? Then gave me so much more insight to be able to walk alongside women who have been so scared to look at their own shadows for fear of what they might see, thinking that they have to slay a demon. But in fact, it's their biggest fucking ally.
Yeah. I love that you told that story. I had maybe a similar experience when I did a DMT journey. And I went in because I used to have major control issues. And I remember, so I had someone that held the ceremony and she came to hold the ceremony for me. I said, right, I'm ready to go in. I'm ready to face off with my shadows. And like the intention that I had was to dive down into the shadows and find what I needed so I could move forward because I felt really stuck. I felt like whatever the healing was that I needed, I just couldn't find. I kept digging and digging and digging and digging. And I remember going down into this space where there was just like this void and this little leprechaun appeared and he's like taking me on this journey. We're like floating through space. Like this happens in a split second, but like it felt like forever, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? He just kept looking at me, shrugging his shoulders, and we just kept going. And eventually I said, like, when are we going to get there? Like, and he goes, I don't know. You're the one telling the fucking story. And I was like, I just had this like eye-opening moment of you don't have to actually go digging, right?
Yeah.
Your stories create your reality. And if you go looking for stuff, you'll find stuff. And if you keep looking, you'll keep finding. And if you keep going and going and going, it'll always be there, right? So just find some tools so that when you move through life, you can literally just pull those tools out and deal with the shit then. And it was like, I actually gave myself permission in that moment, like when I came out, to just like stop looking and just start living.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, like that's where it's so confusing about spirituality, is that you have to go looking for something to heal because, and like healing is not linear. You know, we've also got a fuck ton of tools to bypass as well. So we want to know the difference. We want to have discernment between healing and bypassing, but we want to come out the other side going, actually, I'm done with that. I've caught it. I've honored it. I've alchemized it. I've integrated it and I've released it. That's something I've developed called the chair method, CHAIR, right? And so you get to the point where you release it, and I'm like, I'm done. Like I'm actually just done with this now. I've gone through the grieving process and I'm okay. I don't have to hold on to this shit anymore. And that is liberating. That is, empowerment right there to go, actually, I don't have to hang out in the darkness anymore, because once you open your eyes and you're like, oh fuck, life's actually freaking amazing.
It is.
You know?
It is. We don't have to stay stuck in like in the mud, right?
Yeah.
I love that. Now, you use the concept divine feminine power, right? I find that really intriguing. I love talking about the divine and feminine, the divine feminine. Could you explain how you guide big-hearted women to embrace and embody this energy in their lives?
Oh God, I love this so much. Like I literally get tingles in my body, because when we realize that, like, it's interesting because I never used to use the term God. I had like a Catholic upbringing. I had just like this full body fuck no when we used to talk about God or anything religious based. And then when I started working with like divine, I was like, who even am I? And what I realized was that, this divine consciousness that goes beyond the construct of what, religion and, dogma teaches essentially around what God is. I got to make up my own mind about that. And when you can make up your own mind about that, you realize that your own consciousness is your own version of God or the divine. And so what I love showing women is that they already have everything they need inside of them. Like literally, as women, we are portals between life. We have a portal between our legs that bridges one side to the other.
Yeah.
To fucking stand up and straighten your crown, queen. Like, don't you know who you are? I listened to the audiobook of the book Pussy by Regina Tomahauser, and that, oh my God, it's so activating, isn't it? It just reminds you that you are just a powerful being. And look, yes, men are powerful beings too. That's not what I'm here to stand for, though. I'm here to show women that we can rise within who we are. And my very first ayahuasca ceremony, I had a wild experience of, all I can still put into human words is like I was birthing death. And what I felt was my ancestors behind me, just like as I was awakening, they were just behind me, and I was literally roaring. I was the loud one in the yurt, like thrashing around and screaming. And I was like, we are not okay. We are not standing down. We are not doing this. And it was just like this power that came through me. And I'm like, I'm so sick of women handing over their power to either, men or the patriarchy or society or to other women because they carry the witch wound. This is not okay. Sort your shit out, rise up, and then grab a sister's hand and say, come with me. I've got the tools. Let me show you how to get there.
Yeah. And I love that you just spoke to handing our power over, because no one can take our power. No one can take our power. We hand that to others.
Yeah.
And that's when we really step into the queen. We wear that crown and fucking own who we are.
Absolutely. It's that queen energy, that goddess energy. It's like we get to be mothers, and we get to be wildly erotic, and we get to be boss babes, and we get to be submissive. We get to be all of it because we are all of it. And I'm so passionate about this, as you can probably tell, because it's time. It is
Mm.
time. Like the earth needs us right now to rise. Humanity needs us. Our ancestors are calling
Yeah.
us forward. Like, come on, wake up, wake up, wake
Yeah.
up. It's
Yeah.
time that we started listening.
Yeah. And we do need that balance. So, you know, being able to be in our power, but also be submissive. Like
Yeah.
that, we don't have to always be like in that
Yes.
really fight or flight mode, right? We get to
Exactly.
relax and open
We
to.
can be on top and on the bottom.
We
And
can literally
I love that.
love it.
Jen, it's so clear that your work has and would have a profound impact on people, especially women. Could you walk us through a transformative, like a case study, possibly, where your approach had led to significant shift in someone's life?
oh gosh, to choose one. There's this one particular one that's coming to mind. I actually saw her sort of fairly early into my coaching journey, and it really, really stands out because one of the things that I used to do in one of the first sessions, because I used to see people in person. This is before COVID hit. I used to see people in person. I used to get them to do mirror work, and I remember, going through, the initial stuff that we go to, and I'm like, and I used to see people from my house. I'm like, okay, cool, come with me. We're just gonna step this way. And she's just looked at me, and she stood at the door, and she could not even step into the bathroom to take a look at herself in the mirror. And we still talk to this day that all she wanted to do was just run. She's like, I can't. And I'm like, how the fuck did we get here? Right? How did we get here? So she did look at herself in the mirror, and she didn't run away, and she had the breakdown and the breakthrough, and she just then peeled all her armor off. And she's now like one of my closest friends. We've formed such a beautiful connection over the years. When she stopped coaching with me, we really stepped into that space of friendship, which I love, because when we're doing this work, we have a big permission slip, to be friends with the people that come into our space. Why wouldn't we be? And who she is now compared to who she was a few years ago, it's incredible. And just to see how she's so happy in a relationship, how she's so confident in her body, how she's so confident in just the way she shows up to life, when before, she was experiencing fibromyalgia and such low self-worth and comfort eating, all these different things that were affecting her. And she's just thriving now, and I'm just like, this is incredible. It's really amazing.
I think Jen has started doing. Have you started doing mirror work, Jen, or you've been doing it for a while now?
I love mirror work. I kiss the mirror because I feel like it's really important to kind of see yourself, right? Like looking into your soul to understand that you guys have got to have each other's back. And the more I step into that space around learning to love myself, because I've always been an outgoing person, but a lot of it used to be a mask because I was trying to be something that society wants me to be. Whereas now I'm being authentically me, and I see myself. So it's and the more I step into that self-love aspect and learning to be more gentle with myself, because I'm very harsh with myself, the layers peel back, and I fall in love with myself more. And it's an amazing feeling.
Mirror work is such a powerful thing, and thank you for sharing that, because it takes, like, it does feel really vulnerable, and honestly, like, mirror work is a journey. First, you start by just looking at yourself. I went through a time in my life where I couldn't even look in the mirror at myself when I went to wash my hands in the bathroom. I just couldn't face off with myself. My self-worth was so low, or if I looked at myself and just caught a glimpse of myself, there'd be something to beat myself up about. And then, when I started doing mirror work and I started, being really gentle with myself, things started to shift. And I actually went over to Bali to do a self-love retreat, which is where I really, brought back the concept of, would I speak to my best friend the way I've been speaking to
Yes.
myself? And the answer was fuck no.
Fuck no.
No. Would I speak to my daughter this way? How would I feel if
Mm-mm.
she was speaking about herself to her, like if she was speaking to herself this way? How would I feel about that? Is that what I want to model? And so I really had to get clear on, who I wanted to be. And that's part of the journey. And like the journey with mirror work is, you get to a point where you can look at yourself, or you can sit in front of the mirror and have a conversation with yourself. Then you can get naked with yourself. Then you can touch yourself. Then you can pleasure yourself. Like it is a journey. You don't just go straight to the mirror and be like, oh, I'm just going to masturbate in front of it today. And it's the first time. It takes a bit to build up to that. And that's like any growth journey. And it's such a beautiful way of connecting with self and dropping the armor and just getting, wildly uncomfortable to find comfort within that.
Yeah. Like getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I am really fascinated by the idea of soul inquiry. How does this process work, and what kind of transformations can individuals expect through this journey?
So soul inquiry it's doing the inner work. It's going inwards. It's having that conversation with self. So some people refer to it as soul or higher self. Whatever it means to you, it means going inwards and, connecting to who you are beyond this 3D reality. And when we can go beyond, the construct of time and space and physical reality, we're actually so much more than that. And when we're able to connect to that part of ourselves, we're then able to download all of these answers. This is our connection to our intuition. We get to ask ourselves questions, and then we fully feel the answer. But what I do want to speak into about this is, we also can, if we don't know how to essentially tune into it, if we're not on the right frequency with that, we might get a bit confused with our ego. And our ego is just the voice of the subconscious. The subconscious mind is the programming. It's like the motherboard with all the information stored on it, right? So if we think we know that we're going into it, we feel it, maybe like it's that feeling in the solar plexus where it feels like a wrecking ball going in, and it's like, oh, that really stings. The ego is going to have a story about something, whereas the soul or the higher self is an inner knowing, or it's a whisper, or it just feels like just something, perhaps coming through your crown. It might come up from your feet, from the earth. It can come from wherever. So through doing this soul inquiry, we're literally just asking ourselves the questions through even just checking in with our values. What is it that I'm valuing today? I have little notes around my house to remind me of these things. On my fridge, I have a little post-it that says, what does nourishment feel like today? So when I go to the fridge, I'm like, of course I'm making good choices. I'm the one that buys the food to put it in there. But just checking in for a moment. Do I need something green today? Do I need a piece of fruit? Do I need something warm? Am I feeling a bit cold? So just doing those little inquiries and asking, what is it that's going to serve me today? What is it that's going to serve humanity today? And what's going to serve the earth today?
I love that. I love that. Soul inquiry is such an important process. I always check in with myself and my intuition every morning, but I've never thought about putting those notes in the fridge and, adding that into parts of our everyday. I think that is, I really think that's beautiful and wise, and just like really deeply connected to your own, like that. I feel like it's a way to deeply connect to your own truth.
Yeah. And that's what it is your truth. It is your wholeness. It's beyond all the brokenness. It's beyond what needs to be healing. And it's that version of you that is unbreakable and that has existed throughout time and will continue to, exist throughout time.
Yes.
I love that. So Jen, you've got some offerings on your website. One is the Goddess Garden membership, and the other one is the Wild Woman Womb Circle. That sounds amazing. Could you
Yeah,
tell
so
us
that's
a bit
actually
more?
That's the Wild Woman Womb Circle is actually happening this Friday night. So perhaps before we end up fully going to air, so the 25th of August, this is something that I will be running regularly as well. And so with the online membership that I have, people can come along and join me on this platform where I have courses, programs, masterclasses, all of this different magic. Also see people in person as well. So I'm based in Brisbane. I see people in person for past life regression therapy, coaching and hypnotherapy, and then everything else. So coaching, hypnotherapy, and other sort of connection calls can all be done on Zoom as well. So I see people all around the world.
Awesome. And how do these spaces help support women with their awakening journeys?
There's nothing like women coming together in circle, and I love holding space, and I love creating a safe space for women to just be their full authentic selves, to put down the armor and say, I've got you. We're actually here together. How can we grow together? And this is why I share so much of my personal life on social media, is because if I show up authentically, people will look at me and go, oh, okay, she gets it. Yeah, she's doing it as well, And I think that's the sign of a good leader, is to be able to say, hey, look, I've got these tools. Let me help you come on this journey. We're actually walking alongside together. I'm not above anyone. I'm just here to gather women together. And I've held so many women's circles and cacao ceremonies, and just seeing women just drop into connection with other women, it is powerful. We don't have that in life anymore. We don't have the communities like we used to. We don't even have that, when we have babies. That's a whole different topic. Excuse me. And so it's about bringing women back together to connect and just be. And it is so powerful when women come together.
I love that.
Beautiful. Now, your 12-month mentoring program for the Girl Boss resonates with so many women seeking to align their success and their true values. How do you approach this blend of ambition and spirituality?
Yeah, so this particular one it's for the woman that's, she's done the work, she's on the journey. She's like, okay, cool, I've got the main sort of things down pat, but I'm not aligned to what I truly want to call forward. I'm not doing, the devotion to self or the rituals, or, really tapping into sex magic and abundance and working with higher self and spirit. So we really cover all these different bases. It's like, okay, yes, we're absolute powerhouse women. We're mothers, we're business owners, we're entrepreneurs, and we're so much more as well. And so it's a really beautiful homecoming to self through all these different practices. And, the biggest thing is about understanding, so I do a lot of psychoeducation with my clients, how the subconscious mind works, how we're wired. And once we understand that, when we can go, okay, cool, well, what can I do with that now?
Yeah, I think, understanding how we operate can be really empowering to us in how we make choices and, move forward. I love that, this to me feels like it's also giving women permission to stand in their masculine and like flip to their feminine. So be able to go from force to flow really easily.
And it's so true, because this is a fun one, because we are the balance of masculine and feminine. Okay. And we have to understand that it's okay to integrate those parts. I don't get shit done if I'm just flowing in my feminine and I want to be creative. Nothing gets done properly then, right? And so we have to have that balance. And it's interesting because I got wildly activated by a post that I saw last week by a fucking coach in the industry who was like, men don't want, and it was like girl bosses, entrepreneurs, this. I was like, fuck off, get out. What are you doing, right? But what I can do is I can take that trigger, or I call it an activation. I can take that activation and go, hang on, why am I triggered about this? Where is the wound there for me? Okay. why is patriarchy dressing up as coaches and trying to why is a male coach trying to tell women what men don't want? We've already been told that enough. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And I actually had a client share the post, and I saw it and I was like, okay, let's unpack this. You know, if you're activated by this, what is it that you can do with that? Because what we want to do is we want to bring in conscious awareness to what those triggers are so that we can meet them with peace. Like, I'm a firecracker. I'm Italian, right? I'm going to get passionate. I'm a vegan, so I've got activism in my soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to get passionate about things. And that's how, that's how I have a voice, and that's how shit gets done. But we've also got to check in with ourselves as to why we get activated by this. And so, it is within ourselves. It is the dance of the masculine and the feminine, and it's in how we relate to other people as well.
Yeah, I love that, the dance.
That's awesome. So for our listeners, a lot of them are women going through spiritual awakenings. What advice would you give them to help them stay grounded and connected to their true selves whilst they're on their journey or going through the challenges that they might face?
Yeah, I love this question, because one of the biggest things that I use for myself and my clients is turning to nature. So we have landed on this beautiful planet, and on this planet we have polarity. Okay. So there's going to be polarity in everything. And as women, we are cyclical. Outside, okay, we're in winter here at the moment, and then we're going to come into spring, then we're going to have summer, and then we're going to come autumn. I am yet to see anyone standing outside my window trying to sticky tape leaves back onto trees in autumn saying, no, don't fall. You can't do that. Right? And so when we look outside and it's winter, okay, so that for me means hibernation. It means going inwards. It means warmth. How do I need to support myself in that? I also run off a 28-day menstrual cycle, and that flows with, that reflects the seasons as well for each part of the luteal phases. And so when we can turn ourselves outwards, not just inwards all the time, but go, how are the flowers blooming at the moment? What is the sun doing? Can I actually get out there and stop the wind? No, I cannot. But what can I do with this in this situation? Right? And so when we understand that we are cyclical, that everything has to go through a death and rebirth cycle constantly, we're going to find peace in that. And in order to do that, we're going to need stillness. We're going to need conscious time out to go put our feet on the earth, go for a swim in the ocean, go for a hike up the mountain, go to the rainforest and hug a tree. Whatever it is, as soon as we turn to nature, which is a consciousness, a force that can teach us everything that we need to know about life and about ourselves, that's when it starts to drop in and we get it. And it's like, oh, fuck, of course. Thank you, Mother Earth, for showing me what I needed to see.
Yeah.
A lot of our audience are going through an awakening or a dark night of the soul. Navigating a breakdown to break through is a powerful concept, right? Could you tell us about a time when you personally experienced this transformation during, say, an NLP training?
Yeah. So this goes back to when I had the breakdown on the floor. Like, it's one of my, most profound and pivotal moments of my life, because what happens is we actually get so uncomfortable in the stuckness or the pain that all we're just begging for is the breakthrough. It's like, come on, I can't do this anymore. And what I found through the small group of us, I think there was about 10 people that went through the NLP training together. I was first cab off the rank for having the breakdown. Everyone at some point generally went through the breakdown and the breakthrough. Now mine, the way it just happened this way, that I just went smack, hit the ground and bounced back up again and was like, okay, cool, I'm good. And then waited for the next one. However, some people just kind of had a chronic breakdown as opposed to an acute breakdown, where they kind of just coasted along. Then they hit rock bottom and then they come back up again, hit rock bottom, and then they have the breakthrough. So there's no right and wrong way to have the breakdown. But if you're craving the breakthrough, you're not done with the breakdown. You've got to sit in your shit.
Yes.
You've got to be in it, because that is where the magic is. And I often I often, I will tell my friends if I'm in a void, if I'm in a darkness, if I'm in breakdown phase, to be like, look, there's actually nothing wrong. Please don't pity me, but I'm just letting you know this is just what I'm cycling through. And I know that as soon as I surrender to it, the magic will eventually come through.
Yeah. I believe you've got to feel it to heal it. You got to ride that
100%.
roller coaster, but you also, I know that we can use things to bypass, but I think and correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes we just need to hit rock bottom before we can make that change. Because as we're going down, I'm like, okay, something's happening. I want to change this. You're not uncomfortable enough yet. You're not ready to make the full change, right? And for me, I went through a pretty traumatic time at the end of last year. And I swore to myself I wasn't going to do the healing until I'd ridden the roller coaster. I just wanted to feel it all. And I'd never I don't think I've ever actually allowed myself to feel as much as I did when I went through that. And the change happened so beautifully on the way out. We want so, like, I think when we've got all that pain, it's like, okay, I know that I can fix this. I just want that change now. It's like, actually, are we really wanting the change, or are we just wanting to stop ourselves from feeling what we're feeling?
Yeah. And innately, what we're desiring at the base is all of that is safety. There's a sense of safety that if we just look at, human evolution, all we're here to do is survive. Everything is based on our survival.
Totally.
And so the choices that we make or the experiences that we have are going to be a reflection of how our nervous system knows how to create safety for us within our lives. And so if we're trying to get out of a situation, it's because we're actually feeling unsafe to be in those feelings, which I mean, that's a separate conversation itself. When we take a snapshot of experiences that we've had in our childhood where perhaps we haven't felt safe to feel our feelings. So the biggest thing we need to do is bring conscious awareness to what it is that we're feeling and not feeling, and why we feel as though we can't feel those things.
Yes.
And that's the journey within itself. And it is so powerful to just be able to realize that, asking ourselves, the soul inquiry, what do I need to feel safe right now? What is it that I need to express? What is it that I need to say? What is it I need to, where do I need to be? Who do I need to be around in order to have this experience?
I love that.
That's awesome. And I think it's also we've got a generation of destination addicts, and they're trying to bypass that journey just to get to the end result. But the whole thing is about the journey, the ultimate journey.
It is. It's an awakening journey. And, you mentioned that, so many of your listeners are on the journey. When we say it's a journey, it doesn't mean that it's just going to be dark nights of the soul constantly either. Let's not paint the picture that it's all doom and gloom, because I'm telling you now, the woman, the goddess, the queen that I am now, compared to who I was, for example, 5 years ago through doing this work, I fucking love myself. I love my life. I love how I get to explore, pleasure, wealth, abundance, connection, community, all of these incredible things through doing this work. There's so many amazing things that have come out of it. So it isn't all doom and gloom. I've healed my, the line with my mother. I've healed the lines with my father. I've done deep healing around, masculine wounds. And from there, I get to just live liberated and empowered.
I think too, yes, we are here to survive, but we're also here to evolve, right? And we really need to acknowledge where we're at, acknowledge the journey, and not just ask, what do I need to survive, but more so, actually, what do I need to do to evolve, to expand?
Yeah, to thrive. Yeah,
definitely.
So just kind of touching before we wrap up, can you share a little bit more detail around the Wild Woman Womb Circle? And it's on the 25th of August, right? And how can participants go about in being involved in this, and what can they expect?
Yeah, so any of my events that I have coming up are available on the events tab of my website. So it's just jenhamilton.coach. And it's going to be, really coming together in sacred sisterhood to just connect with our wombs, connect with our portals, whether you have a womb still or not, to be able to just come to where our pleasure center is and where our creativity is, and just honor our wombs for the journey that they have been on. So whether that is through, giving birth and with motherhood, maybe that's through trauma. Maybe it's just going, oh, I don't even know what that is and what that's supposed to do. Maybe it got taken out by a medical professional that said, you don't need this anymore. Maybe there's disease or endometriosis around the womb area that needs, healing and acknowledgement. So we're going to just really come to that place and just honor our wombs. And then once we do that, we'll go through an activation to just really expand on our creativity, expand on our pleasure, expand on our divine womanhood.
Yeah. And for those that, don't have a womb, just because it's not physically there doesn't mean it's not energetically there, because we are all energy beings.
It's so true. Yeah. Yep.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with us, Jen. Before we wrap up, do you have anything else that you want to add?
No, I'd love to just say, my deepest gratitude to you both for having me on the show. I really love being able to dive deep and share all of this magic. And this is what it's about. It's about connecting with other women and knowing now, that we have access to these kind of platforms and this technology that's like, doesn't matter where we are in the world, we can have these conversations. And I know for sure that as soon as I leave my front door today, I'm not going to get burnt at the stake for what I've said. And we've done a hell of a lot of work to get to this point.
We have. So there was like one last thing that you could piece of advice to someone going through some sort of awakening. Yeah. What would that one piece of advice be for them?
Keep going. Just keep going through it, because there is so much to just experience and unravel and feel, and there's always new layers. And don't forget to stop and smell the roses along the way as well. Yeah,
beautiful. Well, thank you, Jen. Thank you for being a guest. And you're right, very, very juicy conversation. I think we touched on everything in this. Oh my gosh. So as we conclude this insightful conversation with Jen Hamilton, we hope you've been inspired to explore new avenues of healing and self-empowerment. Now, just remember, your journey towards spiritual awakening is uniquely yours, and there's a wealth of wisdom waiting to be uncovered. Thank you, Jen, for sharing your transformative insights with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your support helps us to continue to bring these inspiring conversations just like this one.
Beautiful. And until next time, remember that your spiritual awakening is a journey of self-love and empowerment. Keep exploring and continue to elevate your spiritual awakening one step at a time. Much love.
Thank you for joining us on Elevate Your Spiritual Awakening. See you in the next episode.